Hey team, how you doing? This is Brandon. I'm going to talk a little bit about neuroscience today, a little bit about what it is, how it has emerged as a science, kind of an offspin or a subset of biology, um, how it relates to leadership, and how it can benefit the work. Those are kind of the three topics that we're going to go over. So, what is neuroscience? Well, neuroscience again is a subset of biology, so it's still a biological response. Um, but when in the context that we're going to speak of, it really deals with the structures of the nervous system and the brain, specifically with the brain for us, for what we're going to talk about. And how it relates. So some of the structures that are really important are going to be the amygdala is absolutely one of the first one. Again, is that's the primal brain. It's almost your first initial thought, and then things kind of branch from there. We'll get deeper into that. Temporal, your frontal cortex, sensory nodes, and things like that. So all the aspects of the brain really help define how we think and what we think about. Now, why is it important? Well, understanding the structure of the brain is important because to me, I kind of equate it to walking down a path in the woods, right? So you start at the beginning, you have to go over some rocks, you have to go underneath a log. That's kind of what I think of as how the brain works. So you beginning, you start with your amygdala, it gives you your first initial feelings and thoughts, emotions. As you go down the path towards the goal, which would be the action behavior, you have to go into the kind of frontal cortex and really think about things. So it's kind of that's how I equate. You need to know the pathways so that you can understand how thoughts evolve, right? So how it's emerged as a science with leadership, well, the functioning MRI machines really help us understand what is actually activated in the brain. So when somebody's in an MRI machine, they're getting analyzed. Say they get a fear stimuli, right? Right there, you're going to flood the amygdala with a whole lot of blood, a lot of blood flow because it's activated, right? We see that the person has a fear response. We understand the brain is now flooded at the amygdala for the fear response. So we're putting those together and we understand how the thoughts start to come across. Okay, so that's where we get that fight or flight. So knowing what part of the brain is activated in certain situations really helps us kind of get at how decisions are made, and that's why emerging neuroscience as a leadership tool is very important. Specifically with leadership, we can start to get to the psychology because now we're mapping the brain. We're getting a stronger picture of how they interact and how they act. And so Simon Sinek really has this book out. It's called Why or Leaders Eat Last, right? In there, he discusses how the brain reacts to certain chemicals. One specific one was dopamine, and when we understand when you flood the brain with dopamine, you can create an addictive type of behavior. So he equates the cell phone as one of them. You know, you hear the ding of the cell phone that shoots out dopamine in the brain, which gives you a, hey man, this feels good, I like it. But the same could be said about gambling and drinking and drugs. So understanding how the brain actually functions with the chemicals in the brain, how and where those chemicals go, really helps define the role of the brain and how behavior is affected by those certain pathways and those chemicals. All right, so specifically targeting leadership and neuroscience, we really start to arm ourselves with an understanding through four main principles or four main ideas, right? You can promote creative thinking. You're going to organize structural or organizational rewards, right? You're going to connect emotions and decision making. And then we can do deep dives into multitasking. Those are kind of the four things that I was able to identify, right? So, creative thinking. How can understanding neuroscience and leadership bridge into some creative thinking? Well, you can engage their critical thinking by getting them outside of their adaptive unconscious. So the adaptive unconscious is kind of this default setting that we have in our brains and how we operate. So, for instance, when you first learn how to drive a car, your cognitive brain is taken over, and you are very aware, you're hyper aware, you're understanding each step and each pathway that you're taking. Well, as we get more comfortable, more used to, and more routine with our driving, say now when I drive to work, it's a half-hour drive. I hardly even notice these turns. I don't. These little small curves and this one pothole and these dips and these. It's all automatic, and that's what the adaptive unconscious does. Is it kind of gets you your automatic pilot setting. So at work, when work becomes routine, that same setting happens, and you harden routine and everything like that. So how do we get how do we break that mold of routine and adaptive unconscious thought? Well, what Google did was incorporate a 20% rule, where 20% of their week was dedicated to anything, whatever the workers wanted. If the workers wanted to benefit the company in some other way, but it wasn't part of their normal duties, well, then they were able to do it. That's how we have Gmail. Gmail came about because of one of these programs where on Friday, a whole group of people came together and said, hey, let's try this. And they tried it and it worked. And so that's what you can do. You can tap into their creative thinking by just allowing them to be creative and get outside that routine. Rewards, we kind of start to understand with neuroscience, we understand that rewards aren't necessarily tangible, and those tangible rewards really only focus on one aspect of work, and that one aspect is if it is a routine, highly structured, um, very easily done job, well, then monetary rewards work, tangible rewards work. But the more complex thought, the more difficult a process becomes, the less tangible reward systems are actually more beneficial. So when we talk about the psychological need satisfaction of every employee, then you can start targeting the reward system towards one of these three aspects, right? The psychological need satisfaction, you need autonomy, competence, and relatedness, right? With those three topics, you understand that you need to be able to target reward system to that. Get these people competent, give them the development to help them succeed, relate the job to tasks with other people, help them build a team, right? Autonomy, give them the authority to act, help them kind of foster that fail safe mentality where you can fail and it's okay. We tried something, let's get it going. Emotions as a decision making is another aspect. Well, you have to understand that no decision has ever been made in an emotionless vacuum. There's always going to be something connected to a decision, because it's going to affect somebody. It's going to affect people down the road, down the line. So you have to have emotions into your thought process. Understanding that neuroscience of how emotions evolve helps you make better, more informed decisions. And then the myth of multitasking. Really, this one kind of you've always heard employers talk or just bosses and leadership talk about how you need to multitask, get this done, get that done. Well, neuroscience has showed us that multitasking actually detracts from the job and gives poor quality work. So when people are able to focus on a singular activity, they're able to dedicate more brain power, more thought process, more engagement into that one single area, giving you a better product, giving you more ability to focus and provide what everybody's looking for, rather than a poor quality. Okay, so now what are some benefits to the business or to leadership? How can we really engage this into the work setting? Well, we can start targeting those interventions of lack of productivity or failures in leadership. We can really start targeting interventions to them. So, an example again would be anxiety, right? Anxiety and fear are very big aspects of anything we do, right? We are always going to be anxious with stuff, and we'll get into a little bit deeper, but um, anxiety and fear are really those amygdala responses, right? And when your amygdala is overwhelmed, your cognitive process kind of takes a back seat, and you're just kind of hyper vigilant, looking for the fears and the hurts and the issues that could come. So the amygdala is really connected to what's the anterior cingulate cortex, or the ACC, right? This ACC searches out conflict, it prioritizes your tasks. It's really connected to motivation and also your emotional response to what the amygdala is pushing out. So leaders can disrupt the process of fear and anxiety, um, by engaging more of that uh, cognitive aspect of thoughts, right? So how do we do that? Well, you create that vision and the goal, right? Because what separates us, really, from a lot of the mammals out there is we have the ability to forward think. We have the ability to get out there and higher order thought process. So when you create a vision, you're engaging the frontal cortex of a person to see something that's possible. And when you see that possible future and see that vision, and maybe even strive towards that goal, you are engaging more cognitive process, which is making the amygdala kind of calm down, get us where we need, and hey, let's put some action to it, right? And this gets us to change management. So change management, whew, that is probably the biggest fear, the biggest anxiety driver in any workforce. And again, the only constant in this world is change. Change will always happen. It's coming. So that discomfort for decisions may actually represent what's called cognitive dissonance, right? And what cognitive dissonance is that activates the left side of the brain to start thinking about things differently, right? So we have that fear and anxiety, and because it's different. Is that different wrong? Is that different just different? Well, the brain's telling you it's wrong because it's not it's not routine, it's not what we know, it's not what we like, it's not comfort, right? So when we're discomforted, we engage that left side of the brain, and what we need to do is we really need to help people hold on to that, right? Hold on to that discomfort. And what I mean by that is have them visualize what the discomfort is, what the change is, what we're trying to get at. Not necessarily a vision of the future now, but really engage in that left brain, swim in the left brain, get it going, understand where the difference is, why the difference is important, and what the difference actually means to them, and articulate it however they need to. If they need to write down how it means to them, what it could possibly hold in the future, what their issues may be. This is all engaging that left side of the brain, trying to get them to analytically think about what the discomfort and the difference really is. And I think if we go through those type of things, we can really start to understand how neuroscience and how leadership are really connected into motivating people, motivating the workforce, and getting our organizations the most effective they can be, the most productive they can be, and also satisfying the need of the people, because ultimately without people there's no organization. So it's very important to be able to understand how people think, why they think, and to really get them to stretch what is possible in their brain. We do this through neuroscience, and really the proper application of leadership of neuroscience. Um, I welcome your comments. I'm really excited to engage with you guys. So please let me know what your thoughts are, and we'll continue this conversation. Again, this is Brandon. Thank you guys. Have a good day.